Friends like these begins cutting between two stars, stuck where they do not want to be. Popster Jason Wood, who I might call Suggs, definitely not Jake Wood, or Jake Wright, who is Press Gang's production supervisor. He tries to disguise himself by looking like himself, his thoughts perhaps being scripted by Spike. Yep, Moff sure does like sunglasses. Fun fact, this episode takes place on the 2nd of May 1989, as traced by yoyo.org, also known as a Petford episode guide. The parallel narratives are backed with incidental music sourced by, I imagine, one of the composers, Peter Davis, John Mealing, or John G. Perry, or sound mixer Colin Nicholson, or music engineer Pete Mash Morgan. Sarah Jackson may have signed up to Colin Matthews' assertiveness training course. A callback to an earlier visual gag with Sam at the top of Series 2. This is our second Sarah in Focus episode. Butterflies, One Easy Lesson, and both sides of the paper have stressed Sarah as conflicted when it comes to schoolwork and long-term prospects versus the Junior Gazette. She has a habit of putting them both in conflict rather than thinking of them as mutually assisting. Thus far, we've been drip-fed her stature as a paper's top reporter, and Friends draws these strands together well. Sullivan has a playmate. Want to name him? In discussing something terrible, I talked about how Lynda is opening up to relationships with others, not just Spike. We find Vampira acquiescing now to Kenny's need for her to take a day off under protest, because a workaholic, like any addict, is thinking on autopilot, even when on respite. Billy's back in the newsroom too, perhaps nudged along by Colin's words about his absence last episode. Lynda's struggle with change is thematic, wet-drying cement mirroring Colin, still devolving into a radioactive lizard.
Kenny, I'm being serious here.
A hint of not learning, both of them, which will bump up against Sarah's arc. Honestly, the Always Sunny Press Gang video just gets easier to write.
This is serious. Can we talk?
Look, Tiddler.
Lynda, we've got to talk.
I'll phone you back.
Moffat sure does love his duologues, returning to the split-screen device most notably in Coupling Season 3 opener Split. Jeremy Hodge as Kevin No Surname photographer takes the place of Charlie Creed Miles' Danny McCall. Hodge is another Grange Hill alumni and will be with us through to Series 4 Episode 1. Kevin has much less to say than Danny, but it's an important role as function and does show up visually, aided by the striped pullover worn in many of his 11 episodes. Kate, played by Sophie Newton, informs us of Jason Wood's violent history. Like Kevin, she'll come into focus next episode. Both sides of the paper give us a glimpse of the full Junior Gazette staff. It tells us Kevin's a new hire. Kate was around in Season 1, though only added to the cast from picking up the pieces. Graham, when he wakes up in the morning, how does he tell? Well, the only listing of a Graham linked to an actor, apart from Graham Suggs McPherson, is Ian Congdon.
Oh, it's too late, sir. They're all dead.
He works in the newsroom. Hey, Zeus, there's a kid called David. There was a kid called David. Claire, Pearson, Faye Masterson, Pamela, actor never credited. There is a Newsteam acting credit to Pamela Virgo, but only in Season 3's The Last Word. Julie is Julie Craig, head of the graphics department. Gormless, Godfrey Hunter, played by Simon Embleton. Roger and Jackie, whoever they are. I have candidates. Many members of the news team go unnamed and sometimes uncredited. Putting together IMDb and the Leo Mac episode guide, I was able to draw up a list of those actors appearing in the school years. I couldn't possibly identify most of them. The accompanying footage relates only to the episode in which they first appeared. In Series 1 only, that's Alexandra Avery, Matthew Ashford, and Mark Baxter, who is credited as playing an assistant at Peter's Market in How to Make a Killing. He is in the Newsteam from Picking Up the Pieces, named as Martin. One Easy Lesson also gives us a first appearance of Daniel Kipling, named as Roy, who reappear in the Newsteam towards the end of Series 2. From there, the extras will consistently feature, mostly. Breakfast at Ours brings in Rebecca Hamilton as Jane, Ryan Romaine as Jeff, and Anthony Davis. There's a big influx from the second episode. Adriano Agostino, Sonia May, who is playing Sonia, Michelle Gale, Matthew Rose, Kevin Mathurin, Peter Laxton, and Anna Kipling. Tony Annis and Darren Trainer are also credited as Newsteam, but firstly as chess player and customer, but both seem to play adult roles. Jasper Street introduces Mitchell Knight, Lynda Wells, Simon Davidson, and Casey Anderson. The Weekend Pizza adds Raffaello de Gratola, Bonnie Sullivan, Dominic Kipling, that's 3 Kiplings now, exceedingly good. Karina Reardon makes her one and only appearance in the following episode. Lindy Layton plays sobbing Kathy in Rock Solid, and we'll have to wait to the series finale for Linda Frith and Joanne Varney for their single appearances. Anyone out there want to help us put a name to a face? You might think Colin is faking insanity so as not to hand the books in, but with Sophie and Laura in on the act, perhaps it's an advert shoot for 40 Times. Colin as a rights holder of the accompanying photographs of extraterrestrials, which Benjamin Drexel took during his time with NASA.
And if the guy just wants a one, well then it's a good little warning for the rest of us, isn't it?
Asmodeus, Satanas, Lucifer.
Sarah and Linda's heart to heartless isn't as predictable as it first appears. In the past, she stood up for a wrongly accused bully 2 times, shown compassion for an old lady, and looked after Colin. Her cutting "go to hell" seems to come from a feeling of betrayal, personal, heaped by professional betrayal of anyone who tried to hurt her paper. I think Lynda does have feelings for Sarah that count, but they are bound in with the Junior Gazette. Cutting between the two shows the friendship firmly defined by elasticity. On Sarah's end, there's doubt, a lingering lack of self-confidence which dominates her decisions. Interestingly, Sarah is never more sure of herself than when at the heart of her work assignments. She too has a strong work ethic, but when Sarah thinks, she fears, and this is a key difference. Sarah values that process as an asset, and Lynda evaluates it and the pause that goes with it closer to a weakness. An editor must be merciless, pushing on through deeper thoughts quickly. Spike and Fraz pair up for a con routine.
Is that him?
Spike is visibly unexcited upon recognizing Suggs from Madness. He's probably disorientated with the black and white stripes on Kevin's sweater. Sherlock Jr. puzzle literature from Billy Big Brains, firmly decoding train timetable complexities, cause and effect, multiplicities and hyper-narrative.
It's the only thing that makes sense.
Smartest cookie in the room. Because I academically scrutinise these episodes, I can say Colin's just an annoyance here, and rubbish, wasted. But for the first appearance of a Young River song.
Where are you going in such a hurry anyway? You said something about hell. Your reputation? They'd never let you in.
As we saw with Something Terrible, Moffat is in his element at using his comedy as a character story device. Wardrobe mistress Claire Batten was part of this direction, beginning with Series 1 through to the end of Series 2. See, their traditional outfits are at differing ends of the colour spectrum. Yin yang, thank you, ma'am. The choreography of the walk plays up that elasticity. In Lynda's scenes with Spike, it's much more tightly wound, magnetic, kinetic, and in scenes with Kenny, far looser, a dog following his master. Lynda does seem sincere, at first at least, in her pleas to Sarah to get it all out of her system, talking it through, delivered in a fashion not unlike her plea to Colin in the previous episode.
A one-way slanging match. Can you really say no to that?
Sarah's demeanour suggests it's not coming out in the heat of the moment, and it'll be given in the newsroom's private space. This is important because before that talk, Lynda has decided a preemptive strike against Sarah's writing tutor. It's a nasty, devious move. I feel there's some construction weakness in having Sam prepare the warheads, because we might reason she knows about the target's proximity to her gal pal. We're supposed to read Sam's ignorance into it. She doesn't need Lynda's validation. We'll come back to this. Chrissie is at the station, and so she doesn't get the exclusive on Suggs. The KDs run a grift on her of increasing layers of misinformation. Angela Bruce gives us a range with disbelief, excitement, and deep thinking. It's low-down politics, suggesting the union of Spike and Lynda may have negative interpersonal impacts. The scene is Bruce's last appearance in Press Gang. Presumably, Chrissie was so affronted by the deception, affecting her relationship with her mother no less, that she refused to be Matt Care's buffer no longer. Technically supporting cast, Chrissie often felt like a main player, and her loss to the show was felt. If you'd like to know more about Angela Bruce before and after Press Gang, you can watch my feature focus on the actress halfway through my coverage of Breakfast at Czars. Spike's manipulation turns to Station Master Dutton, 2 T's, acted in a brief yet memorable performance by Jim McManus in British television productions between 1958 and 2014. Kevin, Tiddler and Kenny all delight in Fraz's charade. Read it as serving the trappings of children's story genre, or permutations of corruption in the newsroom that began with forging absence notes and included all-night absconding. Is Lynda Day the root of all evil? Her talk with Sarah, these marvellous interview scenes which total 5 minutes, betrays layers of emotional manipulation, of bluff and false fronts, calculating not far from reptilian with deployment of strategy in an assault that traps her opponent in her own web of vulnerability and subverts Sarah's assertions. With friends like these, who needs enemies? It's a Sarah story. She wants to follow her heart, but Lynda makes everything about her. Therefore, we get a scene that tells us an awful lot about the character, the largest block since the Jefford two-parter. Lynda uses Sarah's honesty and compassion against her consciously, intentionally. The pretense of differences and conflicts smoothed over, she pulls a fake out letting Sarah think she thought her writing group already began. Not content with establishing Sarah's availability, she passively aggressively pushes to a new confrontation. The tactics recast her as a victim to Sarah's aggression. All of this is forming the launch pad for the interview with Suggs, but not before Lynda gets a heat of the moment slagging that she'd wanted earlier.
Can you explain to me how I just argued myself into doing what you wanted me to do in the first place? You are a devious, unfeeling, calculating, manipulative bitch.
Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. It's open to us to decide in hindsight at what point Lynda decided to attribute her paper's attack on the writing tutor to Sarah. Was it the outburst? The lack of outburst? Sarah's delight in doing the interview well? The certain foreknowledge that she would do a great interview tempts us to imagine early premeditation to stab Sarah in the back. I love this almost still frame of Kelda Holmes and Suggs. I can't quite explain why. Something iconic in it. This episode comes to us through guest director John Hall, and by and large he succeeds with the house style. IMDb states that it's the only episode of any production directed by John D. Hall. He prolifically edited TV series, going back to Schlitz Playhouse in 1953 and taking in tales of Wells Fargo, Wagon Train, 77 Sunset Strip, and Hawaiian Eye. However, IMDb lies, giving us multiple John Halls. Given his age, he may also have been the John Hall who was nominated for a BAFTA for Best SFX or Sound Work for The Invisible Woman 1940. And so the newsroom says goodbye to Sarah, even as she's not quite said goodbye to it. Hesitation, indecision.
By the way, Sam, could you add 3 little words to your writing class article?
What 3 little words?
By Sarah Jackson.
That's necessary to be spoken for exposition of the twist in the tale, the twisting of the dagger. It doesn't sit right with me having Sam as the approving audience. Shallow she is, but by and large a fair centrist character. She doesn't do a lot this episode, though I'm glad to see her on screen. Colin would be much better suited to this role if placed right. So is Sam acting off unresolved issues? Maybe around Sarah pinching Raymond Adams? 3 little words by Sarah Jackson forms a link there. I still don't like it, but I'll let it fly because the deep dive into Lynda's twisted mind is so powerful here. There she is, framed by Robocop. The closing credit duologue picks up on Sarah, Lynda, and that article. The survivor is in good form in a bare bit piece, reaching no answers on Colin's angle, delivered while standing on Lynda's foot. Suggs does very little in this episode, essentially a stock character, but with all the musicians' presence. Stalwart casting director Liz England and her assistant Simone Hind netted the show's most high-profile catch in Madness's lead singer. At the time, the ska pop group were one of the UK's best-known bands. Think of one of their songs, and it likely came from between 1980 and 1986, when they spent 214 weeks on the UK singles chart. 4 years, cripes. The big band sound, with Suggs' deep tone leading clever harmonies, gave them broad appeal, which endures. The band broke up in '86, and members were happy exploring new projects. But for Suggs, who suffered from a prolonged period of mental illness, including loss and uncertainty of his future role, acting was one of the outlets where he'd find himself. He guest starred in rom-com The Tall Guy, which was Mel Smith's directorial debut. He followed it up with Friends Like These, and going out the same year at Channel 4, The Final Frame. As with Press Gang, this made-for-TV movie attempts to explore the relationship between media and celebrity. Suggs plays a pop star called East, who, while performing an animal rights benefit concert, is... Well, I think I should show you the footage.
Unpredictable and violent.
This is typical of the little I've seen. Some appalling creative choices which unintentionally give it a tone, like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, were produced by Reeves and Mortimer Products. The other 75 minutes follow filmmaker Hattie, who holds the snuff kaboom footage as he tracks the killers through London's clubs and underworld as he is framed for the murder. No, I haven't watched all of it. Acting helped restore Suggs' focus. He was able to work with other artists as a result, explore his own solo ambitions, and get fuel from Madness reforming in 1992. He continued to indulge in film and television, be it Bird's Eye commercials.
These bird's eye fish fingers are a fantastic natural source of omega-3.
panel shows like QI, lifestyle shows like Salvage Squad or WW2 Treasure Hunters, DJing at the launch of BBC Radio 6 Music or Virgin Radio's Party Classics. And he's toured some heartwarming one-man shows, including Live Suggs and Suggs My Life Story, totally endorsing those.
Take care, Julie.
I'm Sarah. Julie left 2 months ago.
Yeah, sure, but you're both blonde, right?
There's something innately charming about the performance of Kelda Louise Holmes. Born May 1971, Westminster, London, of Scandinavian heritage, her first acting role came in 1980. It was episode 2 of The Squad, an ITV teen drama about London Met police cadets, penned by the notable John Kershaw. In 1982, she appeared as Girl in psychological thriller flick based on P.D. James' novel, An Unsuitable Job for a Woman. It's not long in her story before it links to that of Press Gang. From 1978 to 1990, Kelda attended the esteemed Anna Sher Theatre School like Dexter Fletcher, Mmolki Chrystie, and so many others in the Press Gang story. I guess she was almost certainly aware of Mmolki Chrystie. There was a lot of overlap with Grange Hill actors. Kelda's brother John, 1 year older, joined Mmolki in the cast to play Luke Gonch Gardner. And John would pop up uncredited years later in the Sarah-centric entry She's Got It Taped. In 1987, she appeared as a school kid in Two of Us, a gay-themed TV film made as part of the BBC schools scene as a reaction to Section 28, the centrist legislation on gay sex education. Made for schools and a daytime broadcast, the BBC opted to move it to a late evening screening. When Laura Nunn interviewed Kelda for fanzine Gangway in August 1996 and asked about what she'd have written into the show, gay sexuality came up, conceding the institutions of the day wouldn't have allowed it. She'd play a school kid on Radio 4 sitcom Sue Lim's Up the Garden Path, and Hannah in series 1 and 2 of the radio series Second Thoughts. I've talked about the show previously because in 1991 the role of Hannah in the TV version was played by Julia Sawalha, and its sequel. She has to have the last word. Diligent junior gazetteers know Kelda left the series to go to university. Did you know she went to Paris and the École Jacques Lecoq Drama School to study physical theatre? Her actor spotlight is fascinating because it's there we learn Kelda is skilled in many, many accents and juggling, martial arts, Pilates, roller skating, scuba diving, and windsurfing. Oh, and she's an aqua aerobics instructor.
Well, I thought people would be more interested in the train spotting side.
She followed Paris with an access course in humanities for her degree. Around then, she'd fit in an episode each of Casualty, The Bill, and radio drama No Commitments for 1996. And if you believed IMDb, her career slows down to a snail afterwards. IMDb couldn't be more wrong. She immediately followed this up with a 2-year degree in professional broadcasting at Ravensbourne University, where Press Gang second director Lauren McGorry would later lecture. Interviews and news turned up detail on her voluntary work in theatre and with children with learning difficulties. In 2001 to 2002, she took a Fine Art Foundation course at City Lit. From 2006 to 2008, she worked as a tribunal clerk. The previous 15 years, in fact, show signs of being a joyful workaholic, working on shorts, an array of feature films, radio and voice acting, educational pieces, so much stage work, and further, In 2014 and 2015, she served as a director of Stage Centre Management Limited. And I can see there's other omissions like her Edinburgh Fringe work, A Drunken Sailor. I kind of want to write something for her and ask for money for her to perform it. Thanks for joining me. I've written other stuff. I have a Patreon, which is cheap as classy chips. And a big thank you to all my patrons whose names are on screen now. Comments are a good way to say thank you for this episode. And join us next time for coverage of the rest of my life.